Along with today's lesson, we are creating a foldable today. So the paper that I gave you yesterday for the solar students, you can just use a piece of computer paper. Hold your paper up hamburger style. There you go. And the first thing that you are going to do is fold it in half. Just like this. Once you fold it in half, you are going to fold a first side in to the middle of the paper. Just like this. Then you are going to fold the other side in to the middle of the paper. Just like this. So this is how it's going to look. Once you do that, then you are going to fold it up into thirds. So I am going to fold the first part up into the center. And then I'm going to fold the other part down. So that it looks like this, so that when I open it up, it looks like this. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I am going to cut along the folded lines, these lines here, up to the first folded edge. And I'm going to do that on both sides here. So that I have 6 flaps, like so. And then what I'm going to do is to now create my foldable. And on the first top left-hand side of my flap, I'm going to write percent to fraction. Like so. Underneath that, I'm going to write fraction to decimal. And underneath that, I'm going to write decimal to percent. So your left-hand side should look like this. Percent to fraction, fraction to percent, to decimal, and then decimal to percent. Your right-hand side, I'm going to write percent to decimal. Fraction to percent. And then decimal to fraction. So your foldable should look like this. On the outside. Now on the inside, here's what we are going to do. And I'm going to show you each section as we go along. The first section, the percent to fraction, on the outside flap, this flat part right here, I'm going to write the rule. So the first rule is 1, rewrite the percent over 100, and 2, simplify. So we are going to rewrite the percent over 100 and simplify. The example of that would be 42%. Would then go to 42 over 100, which would then go to 21 over 50. And you would write that down on your foldable. Our next example would be fraction to decimal. And our rule would be to divide numerator by the denominator, so we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator. And our example of that is 1/8 and when we divide 1 by 8, that's going to equal 0.125. So when we divide that, here's what we get. Okay. Our last one on this side, number 1, we move our decimal two places to the right, and step number 2, we add the percent sign. And our example of this is if I have 0.75, that turns into 75%. So our last example would be this. Now on the right-hand side, percent to decimal, again on the outer flap, for percent to decimal, we would 1, remove the percent sign, and 2, move the decimal, two places to the left. So our example of this would be 42% and it would go to 0.42. So here is the example of that. Our next example is fraction 2%. So we would convert the fraction to a decimal. That's step one. Step two, move the decimal. Two places. To the right. And then number three, add a percent sign. So for example, if we have 1/8, that would change to 0.125, and that would change to 12.5%. And here is your example here. Let me move that back a little bit so you can see that. And then last, a decimal to a fraction. Number one, we are going to write the decimal over 100. If it has an integer in the hundred space over 10, if only in the tenths place. And then 2, we're going to simplify. So for example, I'm going to give you 2 examples here. We have 0.75. Well, that would go to 75 over 100, which would go to 3/4. If I have 0.3, that would go to 3 over 10. So for that, we would have, this one. Let me move that. There we go. So what you're doing here is you're putting it over either the tenths or the hundredths place, and then you're simplifying. So this is our foldable. And then go to your video and finish the last page of lesson 1. And then you have your homework on Google Form.